All right, sounds good. Well, welcome everybody. We are having another WACCT webinar today, and our guest today is Gail Symons. She is someone that a lot of folks know, but maybe not everyone knows. And so I thought this would be a great opportunity to just talk about what's coming up in the election cycle this summer in Wyoming and why it's so important to vote. So, there's been a lot of legislation in Wyoming the last few years that has impacted what that looks like for people. And so, Gail is the founder of Civics 307 and also Why Vote, which is something that is trying to educate the public on the importance of voting and also give you some of the how and some of the details. And so, I won't take away Gail's thunder, but we're welcoming her here to WACD. And Gail, I'll let you take it away. Just letting everyone know, we'll post this on the WACD website as well. Thank you for being
Great.
here.
Great. Thank you, Erin, and thank you to folks that are on here. Excuse me. The First, I want to start off with, I think it was close to 20 years that my mother was a community college trustee at Sheridan College. And she had been president. She was on a regional board. She so believed in what is possible through community colleges, both for the community and for the individuals. So community colleges are very near and dear to me. So, and I see Wendy Smith is there. Hi, Wendy. So I I just wanted to start off with kind of where my grounding is on this. So I mentioned that mom was a community college trustee. There were 5 kids in our family, and we were raised with 2 expectations. You're going to give blood and you're going to vote. Now, I can no longer give blood because of a bunch of different reasons, but I can vote. About 3 days before my 18th birthday, we lived in town, and mom said, "Oh, your birthday's coming up, Gail. You know what that means?" I go, "Yeah, a party." And she said, "No, that means you're going over to the courthouse and you're registering to vote." That was in 1974, and I have not missed either a primary or general election in Wyoming since then. Even with the time at the university, in the Navy, in GE, I stayed a voting registered citizen of Wyoming. So this was basically bred in my bones. So my mom and dad kind of modeled this idea of engagement and how voting is critical to the things that we care about. So I like to say that mom was a town mouse. She was not only on the community college, but she was all about community altogether. She was about schools, events, organizations, and showing up. She would, in fact, be in meetings and she would be evaluating people to see if maybe there's somebody that she could recruit to run for an office. And that was constant. My dad was a country mouse. So he was about neighbors, weather, fences, and helping when somebody needed it. And that was a part of the kind of rural community. And from that, really took to heart what mother always said, which is that government is simply how a community manages itself. And that kind of approach to government really changes what you're thinking of, what actions you take, and kind of your thought processes around engagement and involvement and working with others. So it's government isn't something else. It's not some amorphous mass out there. It's us. And so we need to be taking care of us. And that means in voting. So the community college trustees are really in a position of leadership, just like many of the other folks around our community. We have community leaders in all sorts of organization. And leadership is not a title, it's a behavior. It's showing others uh, the best ways to model being a part of the community, of making a difference. And right now, civic engagement needs leadership. Politics has become a bad word. It has become this idea of something nasty, and it's not. Politics is simply a means to accomplish things. Civic engagement is much larger than that. And so I really like to encourage people to think of it as civics rather than politics, simply because of the bad rap that unfortunately campaigning, not necessarily politics, but campaigning has taken. So where are we currently? There was a research that was done on the 90 million citizens who did not vote in the general election in 2024. They went out and they started taking a look, and it basically broke down into one third each, so about 30 million each. One third doesn't care. They're not, they're never going to get involved. There's nothing that's going to change their mind. There's no action to take. They're basically throwaways when it comes to actions or making a difference. The next one third think their vote does not count. This one is particularly heartbreaking. I think that where that comes from is that they look at just the presidential elections. They look at the electoral college. And in Wyoming, that means we only have 3 out of 530, whatever it is, and say, well, I can vote, but it doesn't change the outcome. And you know what? For president, that may be true. The irony, the pity about this is that it absolutely does count as you're looking further down the ballot, and particularly in the midterm elections, which is what we're coming into. So in the midterm elections, we are, in addition to one U.S. senator and one and the U.S. congressperson, and I don't concentrate on those at all because we can't do anything about Wyoming. But what's more critical is all 5 of our statewide electeds are on the ballot, on the midterms. All of the 62 House of Representatives and just over half of the Wyoming senators are all on the ballot. And these are the people who are making the decisions that particularly impact the state. We also have all 8 of the county offices in each county. So county commissioners, county sheriff, clerk, clerk of court, coroner, treasurer, assessor, and I'm probably forgetting somebody. But there's 8 across all 23 counties. We also have town or city council in most places. And then when we get to the November election, we'll have the school and college boards, as well as elections, basically judicial retention and elections on special districts. So that one third that thinks their vote does not count, I just want to provide a couple of like stories from the past. So many years ago, and I don't know why I always forget his name, but Wyoming was on national news because we had a dead tie, absolute tie for a House district seat coming out of Lincoln County. And the way that it was solved, and they did this on television, is they actually put, I think it was 2 ping pong balls, one black and one white, in a hat, and they pulled out that. Well, the individual who won ended up being elected by his peers a few years in as Speaker of the House. And he's actually currently on Governor Gordon's staff. So dead tie absolutely made a difference. We had legislative seats seat on the east side of the state where the difference was two. We've had a mayor here in Sheridan County that has won by less than four votes every single time he's run, the last time being by only one. Your vote counts. And so we need to get that word out and get people to understand that. The last one third are people who believe they don't know enough to make a good decision and don't want to make a bad one. And it's not, I believe it's not that they don't care. It's just they get inundated with information and they're busy with their lives. So, with all of the spam and the overwhelm of stuff that shows up on their email, on their social media, in the news, it just is too much. And then we have the problem that needs to be addressed kind of separately is what is good information and what is just garbage, kind of like the way in which we start getting things, mailers in our inboxes. How do we go through and decide what's worth looking at and what's not? And we end up throwing up our hands and going, I can't deal with it. So, what's needed is reliable, reputable sources with information they can trust in a format that is easy to find. So that's the one third that feels like they don't want to make a bad decision, but they don't feel like they know enough. So this is where Civics 307 and Why Vote comes in. So Civics 307, it initially started when I was going to the legislature, and I realized that I couldn't follow all of the legislation going through. It goes very fast. It's all over the place. It's you can get information each day from the Legislative Service Office, but it tends to be just what happened the next day. And so trying to follow a single piece of legislation was difficult. So Civics 307 came out of that. Now, I have just now rolled out this year under Civics 307 a nonpartisan e-learning. And that e-learning has been rolled out. You can go to civics307.com and find that. We currently have 10 learning modules for Wyoming Civics. Now, because we used an available WordPress add-on, you have to sign up for it, but it doesn't cost you anything. So once you sign up, you can take any of the courses. And right now, we have 15 e-learning 10-minute videos. And we also include in those videos for that topic, we also have a infographic and also I want to call it a PowerPoint, but I guess I should use the general, but in effect, a PowerPoint, because people learn in different ways. Those 15 are the offices that are on the ballot for this year. So we made that a priority. So if you want to understand what does a superintendent of public instruction do, you can go in there, spend 10 minutes watching a video on the responsibilities and authority, and even we try to debunk some myths or some misunderstandings about these. So all five of the statewide, basically those offices that are on the state lands and investment board, all of them that have offices in the Capitol. It is the legislative, the Wyoming House and Wyoming Senate, those 8 county offices that I spoke of, and then the municipal. And the municipal is tied into one because we have different formats for our municipal, and the responsibilities of this are essentially the same, whether you vote for a mayor separately or if it is simply a city or town council and the mayor is elected from the city council, or you have a city administrator. But the responsibilities of municipal government is the same. So that's under civics e-learning. The other piece that we have is on why vote. But I really want to talk about how you're going to use the information, whether it's coming out of e-learning or in why vote. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit and say, how do you approach making a decision about who to vote for? Kind of regardless of where your background is. And I talk about how voting is a hiring process. And I am sure that all of you, whatever your job is, have been involved in the hiring process. So whether your job outside of being a college trustee is running a business or being a part of a nonprofit, or you're now retired, you've either been in a position where you're doing the hiring, or you've been on the other side of it, which is you're being hired. And the process is essentially the same. So if you think of voting as hiring someone to work on your behalf and for the community, that's really what a representative government does. We have people on a ballot at all levels that we are asking them to act on our behalf, which means we are hiring them for a job. So the critical pieces are, if you're doing the hiring, you need to know the job. Because if you don't know what the job is that you're hiring for, you're probably not going to do a very good job, or you're going to find it confusing. If you don't know the job, then you need to find out what that job is. Then the second step is, do those candidates, do the people asking for your vote, do they know the job? And so query them on that. Because if they don't know that job, then why are they running for it? If they don't know that job, then you probably want to pass them by. The next thing is, what experience, knowledge, capability do they have that would tell you if they can do the job? They need to be able to articulate that, because it's really what makes them the best candidate. Uh, so it's relating their experience into what the responsibilities of that job is. And then how can they translate that experience into what makes them the best candidate for the job? So the prior kind of questions that we have don't really have anything to do with policy or ideology or political. It's really very simply, if they get elected into this position, do they come into it with a background, a knowledge that will allow them to, what we used to call in the Navy, drink from the fire hose? Because unless they are an incumbent, they're not going to have that kind of experience. So we need to translate that, and they need to convince us that they can do that. So before you ever get to a point of what their political ideology is or political stances are, it's really around the job. So now we get into why vote. So Civics 307 is and the e-learning that's there is really about in general, and we're hoping that community colleges and schools will start using this as well. So it's kind of a, a year round. But in why vote is a little bit different. And why vote is specifically identified to be a one-stop shop for people to know how to vote and when to vote and where to vote. So the mission of both Civics 307 and Why Vote is that all eligible Wyoming citizens are informed voters in each election. So on the website, we are providing information on how do you vote, how do you get registered to vote. We've currently got a grassroots effort to reach out to people to help them understand why they need to vote. And I'm going to share if I can do this, I am going to share. Did I ask to share? Am I actually doing this? Um,
You should be.
okay, so now it is. So I'm going to go into here. And can you now see the Y vote?
Oh,
Yes.
it's coming. Yep, we can see it.
Okay, excellent. So this is the Y vote we've used for this year. We're kind of using a little bit different perspective. But when you come on Y vote, and I'm going to scroll down and hopefully it'll catch up. So there's four places. Get Out the Vote is about the 2026 initiative. There's general information about voting, which is going to contain uh, how do you find the clerk, which is the chief election officer for your particular county, but also information from the Secretary of State's office and that. Then there's information on the elected positions and then information about candidates. So you can go directly into this. But what I really encourage people to do, and this is where I think it's really uh, uh, helpful, is that you can select on your county. So I'm from Sheridan. We've got Natrona. I'm going to actually use Natrona because I have one person already set up in there. So I'm going to select on Natrona, and it is going to go to a single page for that county. So you can see here, Natrona County. I always like to start it with the official elections. So this is the link for the Natrona County elections. And they also have a polling place locator. So I've gone ahead and added that. So now what you see, because they've completed we're past the filing session. So you can see that I'm very much focused on the state. So you can see all of the candidates and what party they're in, all the way through Secretary of State, State Auditor, State Treasurer, and Superintendent of Public Instruction. And so uh, I'll come back to it, but I'm going to go to governor. You can see that this is a hyperlink. So while you're in this space, if you go like, yeah, what is it that the governor does? You can select on that and it'll take a little bit and it's going to come back and it's going to give you information about the governor and the responsibilities. And I'm going to be doing some updates to this to make it a little easier. But the idea is literally to make it that one-stop shop for a voter. So I'm going to go back and scroll down. And then you can see for Natrona County, all of the people that have filed for which of those House districts. And I'm going to come back to Alyssa Campbell because she had presented one last year and I went ahead and I'm still using her profile. She may want to update it. But then as you scroll down, you'll see the county and you'll see all of the people who have filed for all these offices. So again, it just, you can find these on the county sites, but it's not as easy to find as it is on here. And then it has the municipal. And so these are all of them. And I don't have precinct. That wasn't my highest priority, but once I get all of the elected offices up, I'll go back and pull in precincts. So what I'm doing currently is I'm in the process of if when they filed, the candidate included an email, then I will be going out using MailChimp and inviting all of these candidates with an email to register with YVote, again, no cost, and complete a profile. And that profile, kind of in keeping with this idea of voting as a hiring process, it looks like or it has much of the same information as a resume. So I'm going to use Alyssa because I just went ahead and reactivated the one that she put in from 2024. So you can see that this is now a hyperlink. So I'm going to select on Alyssa and again, allow it to come up. And so what it does is you can see on her profile what her name is. We have a picture, what she's running for, where she's located, if they've provided any email, or you can see here, I believe she's got her Facebook up there. And I don't know that she had a website at that point, but it has biography. So who is she? Kind of get a feel for who this person is.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're limited to, I think, 500. It's not huge. And if they have a website, you can go to that, but it gives you enough to get a feel for who they are. What's their experience? And I'm changing this to education and training because not everybody has what they think of as education, but in some cases, their training may be very, very important. I asked them to provide, this is my bias that is showing up here, community activities and memberships, because I believe that people need to be involved in the community first and then decide to run for an office. And so the amount of the kinds of community activities gives you a further indication of how they're being involved and what they think is important. Because if they're taking the time to be involved, like the Interact Club or
Mm-hmm.
a crisis center or an alumni association, they're giving examples of what's important to them and not just saying, oh, these are the things that are important to me. Then I ask them, why are they running? And what are their top three priorities? And one of the rules is you're asking to be hired. You don't get to say anything about anybody else. So this is about why should you be hired? And if it comes in and it says something about who they're running against or anything like that, we send it back and say, no, please make it just about yourself. So these will be, yeah, go ahead.
I have a question, Gail. This is great. For those that have a link this one, is this just voluntary if they send it back to you, or do you?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not something you just fill out and populate for everybody.
No, this is theirs. This
Okay,
is what they want people to know about them.
okay.
And so they have to complete it. They go on, we invite them to register, and then they can, once they've registered and it's been approved, they can download so it's in a Word document and fill it all out. And then they can go back on, and because it's easier to kind of think if you do it offline, and then they can copy and paste into that and then submit it. And once it's approved, it will be available there as a hyperlink. And I chase down everybody in Sheridan County. One of the things we're doing is working on this YVote and trying to get nonpartisan grassroots folks involved that will chase down the people in their counties. And we've got several counties: Johnson County, Bighorn, Park. I've got some folks in Fremont, Sublet, that will chase down people to say, hey, this is really important. This is really a way that gets you in front of the voters that you don't otherwise have. So I'm going to come back to this because I think it's important to also understand most of the county offices, they don't run, they don't have the funding either at the county or down here at the municipality to do the kind of getting money, fundraising, and creating a website. They may have a Facebook page, but they really don't have the kind of information you would otherwise get on a Facebook. So what this allows them to do is, as they create this and as they become, you know, a hyperlink on this, they can take that link and they can use their the site that they're on, the one that I showed you for Alyssa, for example. They can copy and paste that and use that as their online presence. So most candidates can afford to have a business card, or they can have, they can put something up on Facebook, and this allows them at no cost to themselves to provide additional information out there to voters. So it's really, again, our it's important to us that we feel like all the way up and down the ballot is critical. And so when we get to, when we pass the primary, then we'll go in and we will get all of the candidates that are in the general only. So college trustees, school trustees, judicial retention, and special districts. And we will basically alter what's on for these, for the ones that are just going forward into November, and then we will add into it all of the school districts, county districts, and then invite all those to complete a profile as well. So that as we get past uh, August 20th, well, probably by the end of August, we will have an update so that again, it is everybody that will be on a ballot somewhere in this county, um, uh, information that they need. So is there any information? Oh, yes, go ahead, Lisa.
Hey, Gail, I just want to say thank you for this. I mean, I think it's really big. And I know in Park County, and well, I'll just say in the Bighorn Basin, our superintendents have been talking about, kind of campaigning for kind of get out the vote because of just the number of employees we have statewide that are in education, period.
Yes.
And I've told a couple of the superintendents that I've talked to that I'm definitely on board with that for the college. And so how can, some of it is like, we will give you extra time off to go vote, that sort of thing. But
Yeah.
I was just going to ask, like, I really love, first of all, I'll just say for people who, I hear this from people in some of the smaller, positions. They're like, I don't have, and I don't want to spend billions of dollars
Yeah.
just to run for a position. Right. And I don't want to, there's so many things I'm willing to spend money on to put my name out. So I love that this is a great way to put it out there as a keep your costs down sort of thing for people like that. But do you care if I send the link out and then like maybe do a snippet once a week where I'd be like, if you're always wondering what the governor is doing, like here's a thing from Why Votes, and if you weren't sure if you should vote in here's why you should, or something like that. Like, not an advocate to pick a candidate by any means, because of course nonpartisan is where we live, but
So not
just to
only
try
do I
to
not mind it,
increase the
when I'm all
educational
done,
level.
yeah, I'm going to
Yeah.
ask you if you will do that.
Yeah,
Like,
no, I'd love to. And I that's what I was also curious about, because I was waiting for your answer on getting out there in front of folks in terms of filling out their slot and in their position that they're running for, because I think that's a great way for people to be seen, especially if we try to feed this out to our employees and maybe they share it with their wives or whatever else, at home, then,
yeah,
maybe having them fill out their stuff gives them more information. Because sometimes, I mean, we're in that, probably a lot of us are right now, they're in that position where names are showing up and you're like, who is that person? And are they a good
exactly.
possibility, or am I just voting against the one that I can't stand, as far as that goes. So
And Lisa, where are you located?
I'm the president here at Northwest College in Powell.
Oh, great. So we have a very active Why Vote Park County.
Yes,
Uh,
I'm pretty
and,
sure
and
you
and
do.
so and I've got it in some others as well. So if you reach out to Sandy Newsom or um, Jensen, anyway, um,
I can definitely, Bob Newsom is on our board.
okay.
So I
Oh,
was just thinking of it through the lens of I can send this to my employees and I
oh,
can do a
please,
snapshot
please
and say,
do.
hey, here's a highlight for the week. Here's, take a look at these positions or something like that because we're voting for all of these in August. The hard part is school starts after the primary. So
Yeah.
trying to feed information out ahead of time. So I really appreciate that you're building this.
The other thing is, I would say encourage them to not only take a look at them themselves, but my point on what we're trying to do with the Why Vote 2026 is the way we get to people is to where they live, work, and play. And so, anything that you can do with employees or staff or faculty, but I'm trying to reach out to the chambers of commerce. I've gone through them so that I can go to those businesses and ask businesses to do the same thing. Nonprofits, even if it's something like or municipal governments or county governments, that parks and recreation, or if you belong to Rotary and you can get the information out that way. All of this is meant to be. I don't care how you vote. I just want you to feel like you can vote and that you can make a difference and that you will vote.
Right.
So, thank you for asking that.
Yeah, of course.
Great. So, let me come back to not sharing. Um, and let's see what else I've got here to go over. Um, so here's the funny thing to do is what I have next on my outline is what can you do? So thank you for leading into that, and I think that's absolutely it. The more that we can get the word out, and I've got several counties like the counties that are along I-80. I really don't have anyone involved in that. I do have some folks in Albany. I just lied. It's kind of hard in the larger ones, but if Erin, if you send this out, for example, and ask the community college, I really would, if they've got ideas on people who are seen as community leaders, not necessarily political people, but the folks. I'll give you an example. In Sheridan, if you want to know what's going on in this community, you reach out to Amy Albright because I can guarantee she knows. She's involved with the college. She's involved with Rotary. She's involved with the Chamber of Commerce, and there's some other ones. So Deb Wintland is a part of our group. Wendy Smith is a part of our group, and it's really folks that are seen as kind of more about how do we build communities and getting the word out. And what I like to say is that, especially when I'm talking to businesses, most businesses have some kind of program where they encourage their employees to participate. They might have a Friday afternoon, let's go out and pick up trash in one of the parks, or they go out and they help they give them time out to help with Habitat for Humanity, or they do other things through their business that is around community service. And my point is that civic engagement is absolutely a form of community service. And the more that we can have people take that on that way, to say, we we want folks to look at it this way. So as this is going out to the community colleges, um, give them my direct email, Erin. I would love to have, they can just Gail Symons at mac.com. I would love to have them identify people who would be willing to be involved with this. We have marketing materials on why vote. We're asking, we're actually sending out mailers because we're raising money county by county to get mailers out because it hits better when it's more local. I on Thursday afternoon, evening, I have a booth at the downtown Sheridan, which is the Downtown Sheridan Association. They block off. There's literally a couple of hundred, several hundred booths that are there. And bless her heart, Zoila has me right next to the county clerk. So the county clerk can't do outreach, which is ridiculous, but they can actually get people registered to vote. So I'm right next to them. I can't register to the vote, but I can do outreach. So there's all kinds of activities in every single community, no matter how large or small, that are opportunities to put up a booth and talk to people about going to why vote and understand and having a conversation about why this is important. So this is my bid, if you will, my ask for you to get that word out and help us establish those organizations that can make a difference. You know, only 27% of Wyoming citizens were involved in the 2024 primary election. In my county, that was 100% of the people were determined at the legislature and other levels were decided in August. Only 27%. And you look at the various counties, and in a lot of the counties, in some, like in Albany County and in Teton County, there is usually some competition in November in coming out of the primaries. We have top two elected in our municipal. So while the municipal is nonpartisan, if there's 3 seats open, 6 people go forward. So we do have some competition that comes in at the municipal level. But in 2022, with very few exceptions, like 70 some percent of the legislative races were decided in the primary, either in the Republican primary or in those few cases in the Democratic. So when we have literally 40% of registered Republicans statewide who do not vote in the Republican primary, and then they wonder why they don't have any choices in November. And it's like 25% of the registered Democrats and nonpartisan, because there's nothing for them to vote for. So we need to get people to vote in August and again in November. 95% of registered voters show up and vote in November. That's good. That's great. And they don't have very many choices. Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, hey, I look at it like that, but I don't think the percentage is shows the picture. I looked at 2,000 ballots cast in the primary, and there was 271 cast in the general election. And basically, all you got to do is get bragging rights that you voted for Trump for a third time. And we did have Amendment A on that, which was really important, and the images and all that other stuff. But that huge disconnect to me is just amazing. I don't understand it. And I like you, I've started voting, the first time in 1977, and I've never missed an election since. And I've taken all my kids to the polling booth and got them registered. And earlier this summer, I just registered my 18-year-old grandson. And, but I just don't understand that disconnect.
Well, there's one other thing that is really disheartening, and that's that only 15% of eligible Wyoming citizens from 18 to 29 are registered to vote. And I don't, because to Lisa's point, we're now in the summer, but if there's any way that we can reach out and get more of those folks to understand, I'm going to be 70 this year. This isn't my future. This is the future of the 18-year-olds and the 22-year-olds and the 29-year-olds and the 35-year-olds. I think one of the best things I'm seeing right now is, whether you end up voting for him or not, the fact that Sam Mead, at 36 years old, is running for U.S. Senate. And in Sheridan County, in 2 of the 4 legislative races, we have 2 millennials, both of them with young families. I'm hoping that, regardless of where everybody is at, that they can use this and leverage this and say, people are stepping up. Now you need to step up and vote. Like, make a difference.
Yeah.
And they can. If our entire state would change. Our entire state would change if every single eligible 18 to 29-year-old registered and voted. This entire state would be transformed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm at a point where, even if it politically doesn't align with me, I don't care, because, as I said, it's their future. So if they want to if they would transform it into what they want to see for the future. Now I'm up on my soapbox. Sorry.
Well, now
I'm
you're
good with
hoping
that.
that the majority of the population will choose, which would be a majority of the choice of the people, right? Instead of a select few. Right. I get that.
Well, and I made a comment to somebody, I can't remember where it was, that once you get into the 65 and older, it's the percentage is 70% or more. And the problem is that these are the people that are dying off, and they're taking their ballots with them. Anyway, so if you think of ways we can do that, I would love it. I think we're pretty close to the time, Erin.
Yep.
Again, if you send this out, let people know about this. I will work with anybody. And if you belong to a chamber of commerce or a Rotary, somewhere, some other organization that you're in, particularly in the lower half of the state, I will show up and I will present in person, or I will present on Zoom. I will do whatever I can to talk to anybody about why it's important to get involved. So keep that in mind as well. Let's do this. Let's make a difference this year.
I love
I
it,
can
Gail.
get John Casper's Rotary,
Thank you.
which is the largest and one of the largest. I think it's as large, if not larger than Sharon. But I've been a Rotarian since I was 38 years. Since I was
Well, we will share.
25
Trustee Cundy is ready to help. So we'll get you connected And Gail will share out also the links to Civics 307, to Why Vote. And I heard you say include your personal email. If
Absolutely.
folks want to get involved, I'll absolutely do that. So our reach goes out to all of the trustees and then a great number of staff across the colleges as well.
Good.
Yep. Well, thank you for joining us. Great information. I'm really excited and I will share. I'm going to go home tonight and tell my two voting young people who live in our house. So, and I will ask them to share with their friends as well. So thank you.
And by the way, you have candidates that probably could use some volunteers.
Yep.
Sure.
Door knocking.
Door knocking. Yep.
Cool.
It's face to face here, isn't it?
Have a
So
nice day.
Yeah. Okay. Bye, everyone.
All right.
thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Erin.